And today I'm here to tell about to tell about using AI code assistants. Right, it's an experience I had using to develop an Android app without having prior knowledge of Kotlin. And I wanted to share this experience because I think it's very relevant nowadays. Okay, so I'm going to start um, telling about my current work, what I'm doing, like in the startup I work in San Francisco, okay, and also in the Google Developer Experts. Then I'm going to talk about some apps I developed with the help of code assistants because as I started like a data scientist, so my knowledge was basically Python and SQL, right? But when you develop like a web application, you have to know about CSS, HTML, JavaScript, okay? So I used code assistants to help me with that task. Then I'm going to talk about the app I made with Kotlin, right? With Claude from Anthropic, how I published this app on Play Store, the ethical considerations, right? The pros and cons about using code assistants, and then we can finish with the questions regarding the content, or you can also make questions anytime you want. Okay, Stanley is there. Okay, my current work. I work at a startup in San Francisco that is called Zendata. Yeah. And we work with privacy and protection of personal identified information. This is very close to cybersecurity because we also analyze risks and vulnerabilities of large language models. We have four products. We have the web scanner that looks for PII, right? This personal identified information in web pages and websites. We have the code scanner that is an algorithm that scans GitHub repositories and look for PII like names, surnames, email. No? Um, we have the model scanner when the person uploads a data set. So let's say you are working with a multi-class classification. You're going to enter the data set with the labels and the test data set with the predictions you have. Okay. And then we are going to analyze for input bias, like imbalance of classes in the features. Okay. We are going to look for performance bias, that is bias in the output, like unbalanced classes in the output, the target variables. We look for protected attributes that are like name, age, marital status, gender, all these protected attributes. And also, we analyze proxy relationships that are okay. You have a protected variable that is, let's say, age, but you have another variable with a high correlation with age that can be used instead of age to do a prediction, right? So we also identify these proxy relationships, like with high correlation. Um, and I developed lately the LLM scanner that is it's a series of prompts, like more than 2,000 prompts, more than 2,000 different prompts that I use to evaluate large language models, right? So we have like we have four types of risk. We have like security risk, like you're going to make a prompt injection or a remote code execution, right? This is a security risk. You have like a brand risk when the LLM, the failure of the LLM can uh, affect the reputation of the business, right? The brand, the reputation of the business. We have also the legal risk where like a mistake of the LLM can generate like a lawsuit and loss of financial resources for the company. And we also have like general risk that are all the others. So we do many prompt injections, and we create a score for the LLMs we test, right? And this is what I've been doing lately at Zendata. In the Google Developer Experts, I like to do a lot end-to-end projects. Like you take care of the database if you are doing RAG of the embedding, vector embeddings, and also the containers. So it's the whole, since the database from the application, if it's OpenAI, Open API, Flask application, right? And I'm working on multi-agent systems, right? I already tested Crew AI, AutoGen, and LangGraph. I did test with three of them, with these three, and we are going to present our study in a conference, in a cybersecurity conference within 10 days in London, right? I've also been working with RAG and Graph RAG with knowledge graphs, right? Using Neo4j. Right? Uh, I work a lot with Google Cloud infrastructure like containers because this is like very important if you want to deploy anything related to machine learning. This is a key concept. In Google Cloud, we have Google Cloud Run that is like it's a self-managed container service and also Kubernetes, right? The advantage of containers is that when you offer a solution, uh, you don't need to pay the whole time for an endpoint, like if you deploy on SageMaker in AWS or Vertex AI in Google Cloud, right? And containers are very flexible because many of them scale to zero. So you can control the cost that you are going to have, right? I work also with Vertex AI, so they have language models, vision models, audio, text to speech, speech to text, and also with ML ops, right? And pipelines using Kubeflow for recommenders. As I said, they move multi-agents with LangGraph. I also did some fine tuning of small language models like for code generation, like Gemma, that is a open model from Google. And lately, I've been working with MediaPipe, where you deploy TensorFlow Lite in a web page using JavaScript. So you have like local inference for the solution, right? I have an account on Medium that I write the posts, the blog posts. So at the end of the presentation, I'm going to share my website so you can get access to the code of the Android app, to the Medium account, and all the articles. Okay. We have like 13,000 reads per month. And I started working with this code assistants, like to develop this media pipe solution that was to use for some things I didn't know. It was not basically, it's just like an HTML that I was missing, or maybe develop a box for a chatbot, right? And so I use it for chatbots to develop that little box of the chatbot, and also to make inference with TensorFlow Web, right? Because it makes easier when you are missing like parts of the code. You know what you are doing, but there are missing parts like, okay, there is a part of the HTML that I want to develop. Or maybe, okay, I have this Python file, but I want to develop a Flask application and deploy in a container, right? Or maybe you have a project with a Docker file requirements.txt, and you want to have a Docker file that follows cybersecurity best practices, like you are not going to use the root user on a Docker file. So what do you do, right? How these code assistants can help? And I tested ChatGPT, Gemini, and Claude from Anthropic. Okay. This is like one app that I developed it's a sentiment analysis using BERT. The model is old, like BERT is old, but it's smaller, so it fits a web page. Like when you quantize the model and you convert to TensorFlow Lite, it becomes like 44 megabytes, right? And then Cloud helped me to develop these buttons like classify, reset. How can I enhance the appearance? How can I do inference with the TensorFlow Lite in JavaScript? So this model makes a sentiment analysis in the web page. So there are some advantages because when you do like a machine learning inference in a web page, you don't have privacy issues because your data will not leave the web page. I mean, theoretically, it won't leave the web page. So you don't need to send to any cloud or third party to make the analysis. Okay. The latency is very good. It's fast, and you don't need a big infrastructure to deploy. Okay. This is another model. It's an image classification. So you click the image, you have like the inference in 200 milliseconds. It's TensorFlow Lite also with JavaScript. And this is it's a chatbot that is powered by a Gemini 1.5 Flash. It's very simple. It's just to prove the concept. You know, there is no RAG, but it's you talk to the LLM. And the code assistant helped to develop, you know, this box that is floating with the web page, you know, the colors, everything. Uh, so after this experience that I had, I say, okay, people are talking so much about cloud. That you can develop something from zero, a working app. I say, okay, I don't know anything about Android or any Android mobile language. So I'm going to make a test to develop an app for Android. I didn't know it was going to be Kotlin, you know, but I wanted to develop an app for Android. So the idea was to develop a simple app. I say, okay, let's go with the tic-tac-toe app for Android. Okay. And then I have some questions. I say, which IDE am I going to use? Am I going to use VS Code, right? If it's not VS Code, what it is? Which language I'm going to develop the app, right? And I also wanted to publish in the apps in the Play Store. So here you have the cloud, right? I don't know if you all know, probably you do, right? But we have the normal response, the concise response, the explanatory, and the formal, right? When you have this comes to the trade-offs of using code assistance. When they have an overload of requests, Claude goes to the concise setup. And this may affect your ability to get like a more detailed response. So you depend also on the availability of the service. So my first prompt was, I want to create a tic-tac-toe game for Android. Please give me the code. Okay, and Claude gave me the main activity.kt and activity main.xml. And I didn't know where to place these files, right? And then Claude told me to use the Android Studio IDE. I installed it in my Ubuntu, in my Linux, right? And I changed the view to classical to make it easier to use. But then he said, okay, you are going to place this file in the layout folder, but I didn't have a layout folder. And then he taught me it was inside the REST, the resources folder. Okay. He sent me the whole structure of the project with the manifest, the Java, with the main activity of the Kotlin file, the resources, right, with the layout, because later I did some enhancements in the code, and the XML file of layout comes here under the resources app, right? And then he provided me with these folders of the res folder, like the layout that I use, the raw files that I use it also because I added audio, the menu, the XML files, the animations because I wanted the text to blank, but I didn't know how to do it, right? And he told me, okay, the resources are accessed programmatically via the R class layout activity main. Okay. Then I had this basic folder structure, right? This is a screenshot of the Android Studio with the basic working application, because at this point there was no second player. There was only the grid. There was this main screen with the grid, right? But I got multiple errors when debugging the solution. So the path that I followed, I asked for a solution of one error at a time. Then I fix the error, see if the error is gone so that I can go to the next error, right? But in this point, it's interesting because this was like at this time, it was a small project. But when you have like 5 files with 300 lines each one, this memory issue becomes more critical, right? And Claude makes mistakes because sometimes it doesn't define variables, uh, overrides the code that is right with code that is not right. Okay, so here I got an unresolved reference R. right? So I had to import, replace with the actual package name, that was this name, and I imported Kotlin and Solven. Okay. And then some prompt tricks, right? I use it for Cloud. Cloud will use the conversation memory. So you don't need to upload the notebooks, your Python notebooks or Kotlin notebooks all the time because it already has the memory. But sometimes it generates the wrong code. I mean, many times Claude generates a very complex code. There is not exactly, many times is right, but it's not necessary to add so much complexity to the code to have a working application. And you have like the errors can accumulate, right? At this point, if you have memory and a memory that is full of errors, these errors are going to accumulate, and at a certain point, it will be impossible to troubleshoot what you are going to do, you know. So you have to start a new conversation, upload files in the state they are at that moment, and then you are going to troubleshoot better, right? I always ask Claude for a simple version of the code because, as I said, you don't need to add complexity for a working application, you know. And then you have all the prompt techniques like chain of thoughts. You're going to give examples on how you want. And the basic thing is that when you know exactly what you want, you get it, the solution is more easily, you know. Because if you are, okay, I have this code and I know the error is in this function. How can I solve this? You know, it's better than ask like a general question. Okay, what is wrong in these 5 files that I have this error? You know, you have to be to pay attention to the troubleshooting, you know. And the final debug is the most difficult part because there is something you can easily generate like 300, 350 lines of code per day. And this you can generate like the work of 4 days in 1 hour and a half. No, okay, you can do it. It's quite simple. You generated the code, everything is almost working. But the final debug, you have to know what these lines of code are doing. I mean, you can generate 350 lines of code in 1 day, but to debug, you have to know what they are doing. So you have, okay, if you develop like in 4 days, you have time to understand what you are doing. Every little part is working and you know what's going on. But if you generate it in 40 minutes, you have to go through all the code to see where is the error. So this is, I mean, it's much harder to do because you have to you have it overloads like the cognition so that you can understand what has is being done in so little time. And then I wanted to visualize the app. Okay, I said, okay, let's go to the emulator. The project built successfully, but I got this, the error running up, the default activity was not found. So once again, I went to troubleshooting, right? Uh, I tried with Claude and didn't work because he said, okay, go to build and clean the project, then rebuild the project, or sync the project with Gradle files. You know, it's very didactic. You say, oh, it's an elephant with an arrow. And then Stack Overflow, it's still useful for many things. Many things. Stack Overflow is very useful for new libraries because LLMs like code assistants, they have a date where the training was made, right? Let's say it was August 2024. So you have new libraries. You have this issue that the LLM, the code assistant, will not be able to help. Okay. I'm going to speak about this in a minute. And then I fixed the manifest with the help of Stack Overflow. And there was another error, right? It was a Java. Here is a Java runtime exception. And it said, okay, add the package con example tic-tac-toe in the beginning of the Kotlin file. Okay, then I did it. And this is an animated GIF of the interface of the Android Studio interface. I was building the project. And then this is, so far, it's only one player, but I was testing the grids, the 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 main page, everything. So it was like this was the first version, everything with the help of Claude. And was the first version with one player. Then after that, I added a second player. I added a welcome page with a button to play. This was the main page. I added an exit page that is going to say, okay, play again or exit the game. I used Google Imagen 3 in Vertex AI, that is an image generation service for the pages. Okay. I added sound in the welcome and the exit page. I changed the button shape. This is quite trivial. And I added a star in the toolbar so that the person can rate the app. So this was like the final appearance of the aspect of the application, right? We have the manifest, all the pages here in the Kotlin plus Java, the main activity, the welcome activity, and the win activity. The animation, right? I'd like it to blank the texts in main activity and win activity. The layout for each one of the pages, and the raw, right? The MP3, the audio files to start the game, like to the welcome screen, and also when it ends the game. Right? And this was the final aspect of the application. So this here on the left, we have the toolbar with the star. So if the person click on the star, is going to rate the app. You have a button for start playing. Here we have the AI because I didn't say, but okay, I asked Claude, I said, okay, I need the second player to prevent the first player from filling the row, the column, and the diagonal. Okay. And then he added an algorithm to the second player. So it's not so simple to, I mean, to win the game because it's proactively trying to to react to the second player. And then on the right is the exit screen. So we have its attire. These blanks, I'm going to share the application with you. And then you can play again or exit. Okay. So this was the output of this experiment. Let me see. Here you have the app. If you want to take a look, you can. I mean, it's not on Play Store yet, but you can install. It's an Android app. Okay, I believe it won't work in iPhone, but it's an Android app. And then I was going to publish the app in the Play Store. I say, okay, what should I do? This part was by myself because I didn't use Cloud. I just use it for to generating a key for me, right? So the first thing we are going to create a signature. When you enter the Google Play Store, you create a project. You're going to upload the project and you're going to use a key generated by Google because they say like 80% of all apps use this key generated by Google. Okay. So I used Claude to generate this JKS file locally, right, using the CLI, the command line interface. And then I created, and then you go to build, generate signed bundle, APK or Android app, and you upload the signed APK, right? I just had to update my code in the Android manifest XML file, and it was good to go. So you create an app, right? To upload your project, you need to answer 11 questions regarding, okay, is this an app for healthcare? Does this app collect financial information from the user? Is it a bet? Or is it focusing on children? Or what's the age that your app is going to be applied? The countries that is available. And then after you answer these 11 questions, you can upload the images because you have the images of an icon. You have a feature graphic that is like a big image and images for smartphone and tablets that you can generate like in Android Studio when you create a virtual machine of the smartphone or a tablet that is 6 by 10, right? And you add the signature, create a list of testers that you are going to send the link, and then you are going to perform first the internal test, then the closed test, an open test, and in production. But here I'm crying because in production, you have to have 20 testers that must test the application for 14 consecutive days. So my app didn't go to the Play Store, like formally speaking, because of this requirement of 20 testers, 14 days consecutive. But it was a nice experience. And so my perception of cloud, okay, most of the time it generates the right code, but complex code. You have to ask for a concise output or a simple output because it generates like lots of complexities that are unnecessary. And then if you add too much complexity in the code, in order to do maintenance, you are going to require much more, I mean, effort than a simple solution. I mean, this is like my practical approach, like because you have to you have to focus on efficiency, right? On efficiency when you are working in practical. For code, comparing versions, right? For code, the Cloud Web, that is Cloud 3.5 Sonnet. If Cloud fails, ChatGPT also fails for code. But in Copilot, you have you have ChatGPT o1 preview, and you have Claude 3.5 Sonnet preview. O1 in Copilot is better than Claude. Okay, and soon we are going to have the Gemini 1.5 Pro. You many times you have to ask for a simple version, right? As I said, if you are using too much memory, you can affect the quality of the outputs. And if you are using too much memory and you are in the free version, this is going to overload your quota for the free version, and you won't be able to use as much as you want. Okay. It generates wrong code, misses variables definitions, but overall, it's a very, 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 very useful tool, right? As I said, it's semi-valuable because you can do like 4 days of code in 1 hour. As I said, you have some minutes to understand what has been done in 4 days of code, and then you are going to need attention, and you need time, because I mean, it's not only understand, because you have to, you have to get used to the code you are writing. Okay, this is happening here. If everything is strong at once, you may have a lots of difficulty to understand where the debugging is necessary. Uh, the other, I think one of the bad things is that they don't have the content of newer libraries. Like if you are working with multi-agents, you don't have anything regarding Crew AI, right? So, one of the solution, uh, you can create a RAG, retrieval augmented generation, with the documentation of the code, and then you can ask questions, the most difficult part is at the end of the project, right? That many times you have to start uploading the notebooks to understand what has to be done. And there are some ethical considerations. Right? It was very interesting that I was able to develop this app without absolutely no knowledge of Android and Kotlin. Né? But I was worried because, I mean, it's not supposed to be like that, to develop something that's completely beyond the scope of understanding of someone. So I was quite shocked, right? And there was a mix of feelings because you can generate overlap of skills, right? I mean, let's go with the pros. Okay. One pro is accessibility. You simplify programming for non-coders, enabling more people to build solutions. Okay, but are they understanding what they are doing? One very positive point is that you have fast prototyping. You can implement ideas or a whole project in less time right? Without needing deep knowledge of syntax or frameworks. There is also the con regarding this aspect. You can write easily like 300, 550 lines of code per day, you know, but what's the quality, you know? You can collaborate, bridge the gap between technical and non-technical team, and a good prompt and a good LLM can give you everything. Okay, this looks like a perfect world, but it's tricky because you cannot do like Control C, Control V programming, right? Because you must have critical thinking. Otherwise, it's not because of the task, you know, but it's because you cannot give up your critical thinking for the task. This is what I mean, you know. You can do the task by Control C, Control V, but you have to know exactly what you are doing because otherwise it's frustrating. You create something that you don't understand, you don't fully understand, you know. You have to have a prompt clear and well defined because you cannot suppose the LLM knows everything when you upload the code, right? And it's a different experience to code via natural language. So, okay, go out. Pandas read CSV, open parentheses, quotes, and everything you do, very slow. But then you start talking to a model and you just fix like small things. You start programming using natural language with the LLM, right? This is ambiguous and it, you cannot give up like your consciousness when you are doing this because otherwise you have like unintended over reliance in the LLM, you know. Um, and the output is going to depend on the ability of the LLM to understand and execute instructions. Okay. And this is a big con because, okay, I'm working on this. There is an error here. It's Elasticsearch service, but it's changing. Your work relies on a third party, and then you are on a critical part of the project using Copilot, and then you use it that much that your paid quota is gone also. And then what you're going to do, you're going to wait until the next day to solve the problem, or you're going to wait 6 hours and 11 minutes before using Copilot again. You can't do that. No, you can't. This is a big con. And when you are pushing code into production, right, the AI code assistants, they will add errors. They sometimes they replace variables, sometimes they disappear with blocks of code. So you cannot just copy and paste, but you have to see line by line what is doing. Because sometimes I had an experience, I was doing like an LLM evaluation, and I was reading a nested JSON file. And then Claude just inserted a break in the middle of the file. And then it was not reading the whole JSON. And I had less data that I wanted because Claude inserted a break where it shouldn't be a break, right? So the point is, do not rely completely on AI code assistants. And then some ethical considerations, right? The over-reliance in AI. If you don't fully understand, you can delegate your knowledge to the LLM. And this, I don't mean like even long term, I mean in short term, you can see a decline in expertise, you know. So I am against the Control C, Control V without like an analysis, detailed analysis of what you are copying or transferring for the LLM to your code, right? If you are Control C, Control V all the time, the ability to reason may be compromised, generate like a cognitive decline in your abilities to troubleshoot uh, the code, right? And if you have the site offline, what you're going to do? You have uh, to do it by yourself, right? Uh, and there's also this false sense of competence. You know, I developed the Kotlin app without having knowledge of Android technologies or languages, you know. But this doesn't mean I feel comfortable to do whatever I want in Android, you know, because it's not that simple, right? You know, because you need the foundational knowledge to see exactly what you are doing. For instance, okay, Claude is generating a code, but he knows nothing about big O complexity, right? This is an efficient code, right? So, I mean, you have to know to have the foundational knowledge. Uh, the code assistants may have an impact on specialists, like developers who spend years mastering programming language frameworks could see their expertise reduced in value, as this may become like a commodity, but not that much, because if you have hundreds of files, AI code assistants won't help unless you really understand the code. Uh, you can have erosion of skills in the long term, like in critical domains like cybersecurity, medicine, or law, so that you rely too much on AI assistants, right? That you forget the basics itself. You can have liability issues like who is responsible for the outcome. Is the responsible is the human that uses the AI assistant, or is the AI assistant the company like OpenAI itself or any other company, right? And as we are dealing with a human augmentation, it could be difficult to pinpoint the origin of the problem and assign accountability. So there was like an example you probably remember, because a lawyer used the output of ChatGPT mentioning a law that didn't exist, right? And this happened like 1 year ago, I guess, one year and a little bit more. Mm. And you have to have transparency, like in this cybersecurity model that I'm developing, that you're going to present in London, right, next week, I guess. Yes. Uh, you have to have a human in the loop. If it's too much automatizing, you can have a LLM in the loop, but you can never trust a single LLM to do the job without supervision, you know? I mean, so if you have like you are dealing with law, like you can have a human as a judge because it's not a mass scale solution. But if you are working with a chatbot with lots of integrations and lots of agents, you can have an LLM to check the response to see, okay, we are doing a multi-agent system that is querying is doing a RAG with a SQL database, and this agent is generating like a SQL query that is going to expose sensitive information from the database. Okay, then you put another LLM to analyze the SQL query. Say, okay, is this going to expose? Are we going to allow this query to run, or we are going to interrupt, right? So we have to have transparency and double check the solution, right? Instead of blindly adopting. And ethical considerations like, okay, you have potential for misuse, right? You can reverse engineer. You can reverse engineer code. You can develop. You can easily I mean, you have a data set, for instance, of let's start by the simple. You have a cybersecurity solution that you want to develop and create a malicious payload to invade a computer and send a phishing campaign to a person. Okay, you can use generative AI to create an appealing email with a link with a payload that the LLM helped you develop so that you can invade a computer, right? And so this is like we have to have guardrails. So when you are dealing like with this, at least Gemini from Google, you have some guardrails. You have like harmful content guardrails, sexually explicit guardrails, um, and another two classes. So you have four levels. You block known, you block low, medium and above, and only high. So with these commercial LLMs, you can create these guardrails to protect your solution. Okay. And on one side, you can shortcut the learning process, right? Uh, I mean, people that enter like straight to the LLM, they may miss like this foundational experience, like that build intuition, the solving abilities, and the critical thinking that is so important, right? You need time to understand what's being done, right? And then if you over rely on the LLMs, you can feel discouraged from pursuing innovation or thinking outside the box, right? Reducing human input to a mere supervision of machine generated work. I mean, this for me is the most frustrating aspect, you know. You cannot over rely on LLMs.